Now we're at the end of that top end of an Edison Home 2-minute, and now I'm going to show you how to adjust it and oil it. So the first time I'm going to do is oiling, then we're going to do an adjustment on it for play. We've already done the half nut and everything. So on oiling, on the previous half nut thing, I've put super lube oil here. And in an earlier video on the Home, we had the gate off, and I showed you how to fix this washer, this compression washer, and how to oil there. So
And
now,
didn't you use sewing machine oil
I
there?
use sewing machine oil on that. We're going to use sewing machine only. So what first we're going to do is all you need to do is take a little bit of sewing machine oil and just give it a couple little drops like that, and a couple of little drops over here, and that's all it takes, just a little bit, and that runs smooth as ice. Now I took this screw out that holds a reproducer in, and I oiled that also. In an earlier video, I talked about this pulley wheel right here that runs on the rail right here, and I pulled that apart, cleaned it with sewing machine oil. Then the screw on the handle, I pulled it out and re-oiled the threads to put it back in. This is for 100 years down the road, it'll come apart for somebody. And I made this tight. This has to be a little bit firm. Then what I did is we put a dab of sewing machine oil where this bearing comes in there, and we're going to do, and you'll do one back here like that. You just put a little drop in there.
Where did it go?
It goes right there,
Okay.
just a little bit, and we did that on the other end. Now, I've left the pulley loose. Why did I leave the pulley loose? Because when we bolt all this together, we have to line this pulley and the drive pulley on the motor on the bottom, so they both run evenly. So it's much easier, I just leave this loose for now. It doesn't bother anything. Now, what has to be adjusted on this is the play of the mandrel shaft, this piece here, and it runs between these two bearings. So what I did was I set it all up, and I drove this one in, and I've left this screw loose.
Okay, you drove what in?
I drove this bearing in. I've screwed this in. This bearing here, you just put a screwdriver in and you can turn this and it'll push this bearing in. Or you can back it off and it'll pull it out. So on an Edison, why do they have these little round screws right there? This is for adjustment. So what I did was I had put this bearing in, and now I'm going to lock it down. Just snug. You don't need to crank on them, just snug. You have to have a little bit of play. Now here's where the touchy-feely thing I do all the time talks about. This one's loose, so if I turn this screw back here, where my index finger is, I'm going to turn it in. You hear that sound? I put it in a play position and I go, it doesn't want to spin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this screw counterclockwise just a little bit, just a pinch. And I'm going to push the mandrel this way to push the bearing back a pinch. There we go. Oh, but it's still heavy. So we'll back that little screw off just a pinch more. I can hear the feel. See the difference here? But it's stopping because it's dragging on these two end bearings. So we're gonna back it off just a little bit this time. There we go. One more little tweak. Now it's running. And there's just a little bit of play in that. So you push all locked down. You have just a little bit of play. Put it in the play position, and that'll be good. So now what this does is, when we put everything back together and we put the belt on, the mandrel's gonna spin up real quick. It's gonna run a lot smoother. Because you'll rebuild an Edison Home or something and it won't, oh man, it's just not playing. What's wrong with it? That's why we did this to the top end. And so the spring and the pulley, it'll all drive together. And that's my tip for the day.